Hi there, my name is David Rivers and I will be teaching a UIE virtual seminar on visual design for web applications, coming up on Thursday, November 18th at 1:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. You have probably found yourself designing a web application. You may be wondering how to evaluate a visual designer's work beyond what your gut feel tells you. Or you may be a website visual designer looking to expand your skill set into application design. It's also likely that you're using a web toolkit like GWT, with or without extensions, and you're probably customizing the visual design of your app to build upon your brand. Most importantly, you don't want your web app's visual design to suck. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is David Rivers. For the last 17 years, I've been doing user experience design, usability testing, and visual design for Apple, Netscape, Sun Microsystems, and I've been consulting for over 100 companies in a wide range of industries. Here's what you can expect from this talk. I'll talk about what I try to achieve in my designs, what I look for when I evaluate other visual designers' work, and the areas where you'll need to dedicate special attention when you're designing a web app compared to a website. So I'll bet you'd like me to give you a taste of the talk. First, let's walk through fixing a broken design. But we need some background. Our brains teach us how to interpret the world around us. For example, how do we interpret a phone? Well, we pay attention to 3 layers. The display that shows what phone number you've called, the shell that you hold onto, and the buttons that you press. So what cues has this phone provided? Well, there's this display. It looks different. There's an interior shadow that shows that it is, in fact, behind the front panel. The primary buttons are shiny and they attract your attention. The secondary buttons, that is, the number buttons, are soft and rubbery. They invite your touch, but they're still obvious. And at the top, it looks like the sound might come out of the earpiece. And less important function buttons don't stand out very much. Now, let's go back to fixing our broken design. This example I'll use is a parody of what you may be dealing with. To illustrate, here it's simple and chunky looking because you're probably viewing this in a small window. So how do we interpret what's here? Well, gradients imply curves. You can see it in the tabs, in the banner behind the tabs, in the area behind the search box, on the individual buttons, and in the footer. Curves imply three-dimensionality, that things are sticking out. And shadows also imply three-dimensionality. You'll see them underneath the tab, behind the button, and behind these buttons. So let's break this one down. We have different layers of interaction. First, there's the background layer in the header and the footer. Then we add the tabs and the nav buttons on top of that. Then we have the data. Remember, this can usually be a very long list, and we're looking at it through a window and controls. And finally, the search box that was plastered on top. Everything is shouting at us. Let's fix it. Okay, first let's work on the tabs in the background. So first you can see the tabs are light gray, not intrusive, and the other tabs are only tabs when they're selected. The rest of the time they're simply text. And you can see the tab extends down to include the buttons that sit on top of the tab. And the background in the header and in the footer is a gradient that goes from light to dark. Second, I've changed all the buttons. The search button is now green, and it's because it's a special button. Secondary buttons that are only important in context. And then the navigation buttons, the ones that you won't use very much, are just links. And then there's the finish button, which is the one button you need to finish using this window, is quite obvious. And then we have search. I've taken the search field and toned it to match the search button. And you can also see that the search button adjoins the search field so that they look related. This is something that's easy to do when you're working with many of the different web toolkits. And finally, the table. I like to work with real data because real data varies in its size and its length, and it's not nice and neat. And that often means that you have real scroll bars, and so this really stress tests the design to make sure it works, even in the conditions that are not optimal. So here it is before and after. So what else will be in this full virtual seminar? I'll talk about why I invest in screen real estate, my favorite approaches to working with color and lighting, how I battle the devils of consistency and logic and come out winning, and how I escape from cages and learn to love the grid. Well, just a little. I also talk about how I work with and without fonts and still get great results, and what I do to illustrate affordances in my designs. Affordances are the cues that let people know what it is you can click on. And I'll talk more about interaction layers, attention grabbers, and using real data. I'll use lots of real-world examples, like how to get from this to this. I'll talk about design points that I live by, and you can take them home with you. So please join me Thursday, November 18th at 1:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time.